Hey guys, Languagehacker here, and now I've got a comp video for you guys. We're going to go over a Shadowed. I'm not sure if it's optimal because it's hard to learn and start putting stuff together, but I've got a little bit of a comp here that I think is kind of okay. So let's go through and actually review what each of these things do. The main idea of the comp is scaling shadow damage and then trying to basically AoE everything down once we get to a specific point. And let's go over how we're going to do that. Now, Tamsen is one of the heroes you'll need, and probably the most important one because she has a scaling shadow spell. It's slow, so you need some sustain until you can get it going. But basically, on a one-turn cooldown, so every other turn, Tamsen can gain +5 shadow damage. And when a merc gains spell damage in any shape or form, like shadow, nature, arcane, whatever, it works for your entire party. As long as Tamsen stays alive and on the board, any shadow spells you use on your entire team will benefit from the spell damage. So if you can ramp up over a few turns with this and then start using some AoE spells or even just single target spells to take down big units, it starts doing a lot of damage and it starts really wiping out comps. I've had games where I completely just wipe out like 3 mercs at once with a couple of spells. But let's review their other spells. There's just a Shadow Bolt, single target damage, not super fast. And Void Consumer, which spawns a Taunted Demon. This can also be kind of useful to protect yourself against fighter or protector heavy comps that will try to kill Tamsen. So having an extra taunt is nice. But even without this, because it also has one turn cooldown, there's some other units we have that are going to try to protect Tamsen until we can get that online. An important thing to note is that you can actually just spawn out of control like this. If you find out that your opponent doesn't have any abilities or spells that can reach Tamsen, you can just crank out demons because they also scale off of other shadow spells you use. And with the number of shadow spells we have in this comp, these guys get pretty big if they're not dealt with. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And that's Tamsen. We can go over the equipment real quick. I don't have access to all of them, and you could consider picking up some of these. Shadow Bolt deals more damage, so this increases the amount of single target you're doing. I don't think you really need this for this build. Void Stone, Void Consumer has a +1/+2, which buffs the demons that are coming out. That's probably useful, but eh. And this is the one that I'm using, which is the one you get just at level 30, and it's Last Rites. Death Rattle on Tamsen, summon a big old butt, a Void Guard. Neither of these are super useful. They're okay. I'm finding this is the best because in games where Tamsen does die and you lose the shadow damage, the rest of the comp still works. It's just less powerful, and because of that, having a Death Rattle like this as a consolation if Tamsen dies is really kind of nice. I haven't upgraded to 25/25 yet because I don't have that many coins, but I'm kind of okay with this equipment. All right, next up. Vol'jin is also a very, very important part of this comp. Vol'jin has a specific equipment here that I'm going to talk about first. Passive, your shadow ability is a 3 speed faster. That's really fast. Because of this being fully upgraded, whenever I have any units on the board with shadow spells, they will almost always go first. So my game plan is generally Tamsen plus some tanks, crank up the shadow damage, and then once my tank falls and dies, we throw in Vol'jin, and then suddenly we just start AoEing everything down, just waves of AoE, and it happens to just kill a lot of stuff. And Ring of Haste is very, very important. If you don't have Ring of Haste, the comp will still work, but you won't have that speed bonus, so you'll probably be losing a lot more than you should be. So Vol'jin and Tamsen are pretty important. The other ones I'll go into in just a moment, and they're less integral, but you kind of need Tamsen and Vol'jin to make this work, just as a heads up. Neither of them are legendary, which is kind of nice, but to get to Vol'jin's Ring of Haste, you have to do 7 tasks, which can take up some time. So keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out if you want to do this or not. All right, let's go through his abilities real quick. Shadow Shock. Deal damage to an enemy. Its next ability is slower. So it's a single target, and it's a bit of a slow as well. And that includes the ability this turn. If this happens before they get an ability off, that means the ability they were casting this turn gets slowed. Otherwise, it's the ability that happens next turn. Shadow Surge, deal damage to all enemies, so it's an AoE. And Shadow Combo, deal extra damage instead. Shadow Combo happens if you have already cast a Shadow spell on this turn. And this ends up being really nice with Tamsen because when Veil of Shadows is reduced speed-wise, it has a speed of 0, which means it casts probably before anything else in the turn. And then immediately Shadow Surge, 3 speeds faster, is at 2 speed, which is still really, really fast. So you can ramp up damage and Shadow Surge. You also have Cursive Weakness, which is another AoE, but it also applies Shadow Weakness to all the enemies for the turn. And what Shadow Weakness means is that any instances of shadow damage being done to that target will take 6 extra damage, in this case, because it's 6 Shadow Weakness. And again, with this Ring of Hasted, this deals 1 damage. This costs 1. Sorry, not costs 1. This is a speed of 1, which means it still happens like the first in the turn, and then you can use the other shadow spells after to get extra damage of the Shadow Weakness. So Vol'jin, very, very good in this sort of shadow type build. Now let's talk about, we'll go over Natalie as well, because we can talk about casters first. Natalie is the one I'm least sure about in this comp, but she has still kind of been okay so far. Now, Natalie's an interesting kind of character. She has some shadow stuff and some holy stuff, and she has this third spell that lets you switch back and forth between Anathema and Benediction. Anathema and Benediction, lore-wise, I think are legendary weapons in the WoW history, World of Warcraft. Now, by default, she starts in Anathema with Anathema, which means that she deals extra shadow damage with her Shadow Beam. Shadow Beam is just a single target, deal damage. If you have Anathema active, deal extra damage. And her second ability is Light Beam. Restore health. If you're in Benediction, restore more health. And to swap back and forth between Anathema and Benediction, there's a cooldown on it, but basically it does AoE, and then you transform into Benediction, which then will be similarly, instead of AoEing opponents, it will have an AoE heal when you switch back to Anathema. So the way I've been kind of setting this up is starting with Natalie, Tamsen, and Cariel to tank, basically. I start cranking out some shadow damage, then I do the Anathema AoE, heal up a bit, wait for someone to die, and then I tap in Vol'jin and start AoEing people down. Equipment-wise, I don't think any of these are super useful. I've been using Eye of Shadow to deal a bit more damage. But honestly, it might be better to include Eye of Divinity just to keep the sustain going. I think this might be the best thing to have, but I haven't done the task 7 yet for Natalie. Now, the reason this is good is because you can just Anathema and Benediction having no cooldown means you can AoE damage, AoE heal, AoE damage, AoE heal. So you're basically just spamming your last ability here, unless you need a quick heal. The benefit of using these two instead of the big AoE one is that this is, even though it's single target, it happens faster, the speed. So if you're afraid that a unit's going to die before you can get a heal off, you might have to target them with Light Beam instead of Benediction or Anathema if you're trying to deal damage. But again, I'm not super certain if Natalie should be in. She's still been okay, and having an extra Shadow AoE is kind of nice. But yeah, it'll require some more tinkering to find out if she's optimal or not. All right, next up, we have tanks. Cariel, free to play. You get her right at the start of the tutorial, or relatively near the start of the tutorial. The reason I need Cariel is because when I tried making the Shadow comp work with other tanks, Tamsen was just dying. And Cariel is one of the only units that can taunt immediately, which means you don't get hit by Blade-Master Samuro immediately because there's a taunt in the way, so Tamsen is protected. And this is why I have Cariel. Taunt on turn 1, protect your units, start ramping up the Shadow, and then when Cariel falls, you throw in the other damage dealers with Vol'jin and start AoEing. She has some sustain too. After you're taunted up, you can Seal of Light because it technically heals more than the taunt unless you're afraid of dying, in which case you can just keep spamming taunt to get the guaranteed heal out of it. I almost never use Crusader's Blow, at least in this sort of setup, because I'm just focused on keeping the units alive as long as possible to get extra value out of Tamsen ramping up with shadow damage. Next up, usually after Cariel falls, I'll throw in the Lich King if I still need more time for ramping, because after a turn or two, Lich King will be able to taunt as well. It's not as fast as Cariel, but generally I'll hope that Samuro's out of the picture by the time Lich King comes down, so I can either throw up a taunt, or if I'm throwing in the Lich King, there's some flexibility because I have Death Coil. If I really need to take out a target, Samuro, I can use Death Coil with the shadow damage I built up from Tamsen because this is a shadow spell, or if I don't have to deal with a Samuro or something like that, I can even use this as healing if I think I need to save Tamsen or Natalie until I can get the taunt going. The other abilities are kind of useful as well. Attack an enemy. The ability cast this turn is permanently slower for the rest of the fight, not just this turn. So this can be pretty useful as well. And then between the taunt and the Death Coil, this has seemed like a flexible option in terms of having an extra tank. Because I found that if Cariel was dying and I had other damage dealers instead, I didn't have enough time to get Tamsen ramp going for the shadow damage, and having an extra little thing in the way has been kind of useful, and Lich King I've been using for that. Equipment-wise, I've been using Death Coil always restores 4 health to this Merc as well for a bit of sustain. I think this might be better. Frostbite slows the target's neighbor as well, which means that when you attack something, 2 targets or maybe 3, is it 2 or 3? Hold on. Yeah, it can be 2 or 3 targets will end up having their abilities slowed by quite a bit, which is quite nice. But again, all of these amazing equipment are locked behind task 7, which takes some time to build up. So prioritize Vol'jin for this comp, and the rest can kind of follow after. Okay, we're down the taunts. Let's talk about Sylvanas. Sylvanas is a nice little damage dealer as well. It's not immediately obvious because this isn't a spell technically. I mean, it's still an ability and it's a ranged attack, but it doesn't immediately, it's not completely obvious. Shadow damage does scale with this as well. Now, when you're mousing over shadow spells, for example, Anathema or Shadow Beam, there'll be like an asterisk that pops up because normally, let's say you do 9 damage, but after you apply an instance of shadow damage, it'll be like asterisk 14 asterisk. That doesn't apply to Sylvanas because there's no numbers here, so it's not immediately obvious that she benefits from the spell damage, but she does. So if I'm dealing 11 damage, but I have some shadow damage ramp, it does more than 11 damage with the Banshee Bolt, which deals damage equal to the attack of Sylvanas. So keep that in mind when you're going in. In really slow matches, I can have time to play Reclaimed Souls, but usually by the time I throw her in, I have enough shadow damage that this just starts destroying people if I need some extra damage. This can be useful as well if there's still 3 people up, but I've noticed that this even is too slow because this just happens to do so much damage. In terms of equipment for Sylvanas, I'm just having this because it's the only one I have available, and adding extra damage is just scalability. I think it'd be useful to have Death Volley, again, behind task 7, because I can throw her in not as the final unit. Generally, I have been throwing her in as the final unit right now, but this way I can throw her in the middle, and then this Death Rattle will pop off and do some damage as well before I throw in the final damage dealers. So I think this is probably the most useful one I have for Sylvanas, but it kind of depends what you're trying to do. If you're going for a more damage scaling, you could try that, but this I feel is kind of nice. Generally, when I throw Sylvanas in, it's after my tanks have died, so she's a little more exposed, which means it might be nice to have the Death Rattle, but ultimately I'm still experimenting, so I'm not 100% certain. Okay, so this is the comp I've got going. I've been doing pretty well with it, winning most of my games. Let's hop in and actually see how the game plays out. Let's get a couple of sample games for you guys. No, looks like I actually have a human opponent. All right, my opponent has 3 casters, 2 protectors, and a fighter, which is nice. Fighters are good against my casters, and when I start off with 2 casters, it's kind of weak to fighters sometimes. So let's start like I talked about. Tamsen, Natalie, and Cariel for taunting. It's possible this is the holy build with Zyrella, Blademaster, and Velen. Anduin. Ooh, okay. So this is similar to what I've got going. Velen is a ramping holy class. I'm doing Shadow instead. So I imagine both of us will be taunting our Cariel to protect. Would I rather deal 10 to both of us, or would I rather just chill? I'd probably rather just chill. Now, turn 1, I can't ramp up, so I'll probably just target something to start doing some damage. I could focus Cariel because I do extra damage here, or I could try burning down one of these guys. The thing is, I know these guys have some healing, so I think I'm just going to start off with Cariel. And because of that, I'm going to do this as well. Just do some damage for now. And the next turn, we'll start ramping up with Tamsen's 3rd ability. Yep, Cariel did the same thing. Now their Cariel, ooh, we almost killed them. Their Cariel has looks like they have an equipment that gives them extra damage while they're taunted. How fast are these abilities? 4 and 7. So I could try healing with this, but it's a little risky because it might die. Actually, I have Light Beam, so I could heal back up, or I could just go straight into Anathema and kill their Cariel as well. It's a little slower though. This is where I have a decision point already. I think I'll go for taunt just to be safe, and then I'll do the damage ramp, and then I'll do anathema. I could heal to sustain a bit more, but Cariel's not super important against this. They don't have a very melee heavy comp, which by melee I mean protector or fighter, so I don't actually have to focus on protecting these quite as much. So I think just getting into, I think just getting the AoE out of the way now is probably fine. It also means they can't heal, which is nice. They did get an AoE going. We get both Carol's are dead. So now it's an interesting turning point. Normally here I would throw in Lich King for some extra tanking, but there's two casters here, and because of that, Lich King's going to die very, very quickly. I already have a bit of damage ramp, so I could consider just throwing Vol'jin or Sylvanas at this point. It's kind of a coin flip which one I really want to be doing. They have one of each thing left over. One caster, one protector, one fighter. Normally I would just throw in Vol'jin. But I think I want to throw in Sylvanas to try and start killing these two, because I think Valen's going to be a bit of a problem. The holy damage sticks permanently, so I'm probably going to want to get Sylvanas down to clean this up, because I think their comp will start to fall apart, just like my comp will fall apart if my Tamsen starts dying. My Tamsen's not particularly weak to their casters, because they don't take double damage. Looks like they got Tyrion in. Oh yeah, Uther's blue. So Tyrion's in. They're probably going to... They had the same idea as me. Let's try to get rid of their damage dealing guy. Okay. I can put up a taunt here, which prevents the Uther attack. Or I can just deal some damage. I can also deal some damage here. Do I have enough damage to take out Valen? That's a very good question. 16 plus 14 is 30. 11, 41. Plus how much spell damage do I have? 5. 41 plus 5. But I do double from this. I think I should have enough to take that out. To take out the Valen. I could try to play it safe and do this to protect Tamsen, and I think I might do that. This should be enough damage. You know, it might not be, actually. I don't think I actually kill Valen without doing the this, unfortunately. But my whole build kind of falls apart if I don't have Tamsen, which is kind of an issue. Okay, we'll go for the Valen kill instead. Ooh, they didn't target Tamsen. That's really good for me. Now, they did buff the Valen as well, which is unfortunate. Okay. All right, round 2. Holy Blast. Okay. I wanted the ramp from this, but I'm kind of scared. I think that's fine. At 53, I shouldn't die. I can do the healing now as well. And I can just do the damage again from Sylvanas, and we should be okay. I don't think they have enough damage output without type advantage. I mean, the Tyrion can attack, but Tyrion attacks is pretty slow. This also prevents healing, which is nice. Okay. Ooh. Okay, this worked out. So, and this is a very important thing. Tyrion used his ability that set my Sylvanas' attack lower, but because I had the extra shadow damage from Tamsen, it still ended up working out. And this is where I think I launch Vol'jin and start doing a lot of damage. Because Tamsen's about to die, so I want to get one good turn out of her before she goes away. Lich King. We can probably actually completely kill Lich King this turn. All of our things are a bit faster. Do I want to use Shadow Weakness or do I want to do AoE? That's a good question. Taunt's not super useful at this point. I think I'm just going to blow that up. I'm going to blow up Lich King. The thing is, Tamsen's kind of low, but I have no way to heal her without my own Lich King. AoE. 24 times 2 is 48. That's another 42. 48 plus 42 is plenty of damage. So I can start off with Tamsen's Shadow Bolt, then do the combo from the Shadow Surge, and then Banshee Bolt to clean up Anduin. I don't think it'll kill Anduin, but it should do a lot of damage. Tamsen's probably going to die this turn, unfortunately. Okay, Lich King's dead. We got a lot of damage off there as well. Oh, they got the death blow, so the Divine Shield's popping off. That's kind of bad for me. We do have a taunt in the way, so that's still kind of nice, though. They have a caster left as well. So we have 3v3 left over. I do have a taunt, which is actually kind of useful. I still have Vol'jin to speed up my stuff. Oh, they have Uther left. Okay, Uther's going to be a bit of a problem, actually. Do I have enough time to ramp with this? I'm not sure if I do. I think I have to get Anduin off the board right now. I can Death Coil to heal back up. I think Death Coiling to heal back up is probably going to be useful because I think I need Sylvanas. I'm going to start with Shadow Weakness AoE because it happens very quickly, and then Sylvanas just Banshee Bolt there. Do I want to attack with this, or would I rather have it just sitting as a taunt? I think I do want to attack with it. Where do I want it to go? Anduin should die this turn. I think all my abilities are going to happen before his. Just in case I can do that. Okay. This ability is happening last, so it's the one that I'm least concerned about. And if Anduin does die, it'll just redirect it to somewhere else, because I'm not even really sure where I want to send it. I think if I keep Sylvanas alive, we should win the fight from here. And even though I've lost Tamsen, and this is kind of why the death rattle from Tamsen is kind of nice, I've lost the spell damage. They've lost theirs as well, so I have like an extra body on the board, which is kind of nice. Vol'jin's speed is still helping me out, though. Got the heal. Got the damage. Kings goes off. Holy Wrath. Okay, so we're still good. Okay, do I put the taunt? Or do I just go for the attack? Another AoE is probably nice to get rid of the Divine Shield. And it deals damage to both, which is nice. Do I want to actually attack? Or I mean, taunting doesn't help too much. I think I do go for the attack, because I already have taunt here. Sylvanas, we can use to go there. I could use for the Queen. Maybe I do use for the Queen. I think this is still too slow right now. It's kind of tough. I'm not familiar enough with all the abilities that they have. Hammer of Justice. Death Rattle. So I'm more inclined to kill Uther first. He steals 22. The thing is, this could be bad if Tyrion does the thing that sets my health low. So I think I'm going to do this, or sorry, my attack low. So we'll do that. I'll hold off on the attack there, just so they can't get a clear attack onto my minions. Use for the Queen. Hammer of Justice deals double damage. The taunt protect. Oh, I forgot that the death blow causes them to get get Divine Shield again. I did forget about that. Okay, Shadow Weakness. Death Coil should close this out because it's happening first. And then this can attack there. Exactly. And they know that's going to happen. So perfect. Sweet. This was actually kind of a close fight because of the fact that we both lost our scaling units quickly. It was pretty cool. Nice. I'm still learning a lot. I mean, part of this game is also learning what all your opponent's abilities do as well, because that influences what you want to be doing on your turns, right? If you know your opponent has something that could disrupt you, maybe you try being a bit more defensive or trying to, you know, do some mind games to prevent them from hitting the targets that they want. Okay, even split here, but I'm still going to start off the same, I think. Tamsen, Natalie, and Cariel. Normally I don't throw in, what did I throw in there? Yeah, so the previous match, I did not put in Lich King like I normally do. I skipped Lich King and went to someone else. Samuro, Lich King, Xyrella. Okay, so this is exactly why you need Cariel, because the Xyrella Blade Master setup just destroys Tamsen way too quickly. So now that we have a taunt in the way, we can prevent that from happening. The question is, what are we going to start targeting? I think I start targeting Samuro, because Samuro's kind of annoying. I do more damage to Lich King, but Samuro's the main thing that causes me issues because of the Xyrella Samuro combo. So I think I'm going to leave Lich King, even though I generally deal double damage there, and I'm going to try to get Samuro killed as fast as possible. Even though this doesn't do that much damage, it still does damage. Okay, it's fine. Cariel's probably dead, but in case she's not, we'll go for the heal because it's faster than the taunt. And I can use, normally I would Anathema here, but I think Light Beam will save Cariel from immediately dying, which means I can try doing that. I can do the damage ramp as well. Or is it better just to do the 12 AoE? No, I think trying to heal is still worth it. I think that should go off before Xyrella, because Xyrella's speed is 3. And then it might soak up one more attack from Samuro, which is going to be useful. Ooh, they went for the mirror. Oh, it's 2 mirror images instead. So that means... Oh, the healing didn't work though. Aha. That's the other thing about Tamsen's damage ramp. It prevents healing for the turn. Okay, so now I have an interesting decision. I could Lich King to continue taunting and preventing them from dealing with my threats, or I could Vol'jin and just try to wipe this board out really quickly. Because I have damage ramp, Vol'jin will make all my abilities faster, and I should be able to knock out Samuro. So the damage ramp is on cooldown. I have to use Shadow Bolt if I want to do a kill, but I think that's worth it. They have one of each left. The only... you know what? You know what? How fast is Lich King's Death Coil? I wish I knew. This is actually kind of tough. I think I still put in Lich King here. A turn has passed, so I can use Lich King's Taunt. I could Death Coil to clean that up. The problem is Zyrella's there's Zyrella's like nuke is 3 speed, and Samuro's double strike is 4 speed. So Samuro's got to get in before the Death Coil goes off. So I think I have to Frost Shield. I could put a Taunt in the way as well here instead of going for the Shadow Bolt. It makes me a bit safer. I think I will do that, and then I'll go Anathema to do the damage, AoE damage. The problem is both these speeds are going to be equal, so it's a coin flip if Samuro gets attacked first or not. Alright, the taunt does go off. Goes for immunity, okay. Okay, that's fine. Unfortunately, Veil of Shadows is slower for the rest of the game, and that's kind of an issue. So maybe I don't ramp this turn. That has to die. Maybe I still go for the ramp. And then you go for the heal. Just to make sure you don't die. I'm not going to attack with that. That might attack before Lich King does, and I'd rather it soak up an attack. There's the image. Now, what is it? The second image doesn't attack, right? If I'm not mistaken. It does not. Okay. Now that should kill off Samuro because that does double damage. Excellent. And we still got the ramp off. And we got the heal. Good. Okay. So we got to maintain our whole board. We have Taunt up again. Again, this is all about keeping Tamsen alive. Now, it is kind of annoying that the damage ramp is slowed for the rest of the game. It's going to make things a bit harder, but we can try figuring it out. It's fine. And once we get Vol'jin down, it's still going to be pretty fast, so it's not the end of the world. Getting it off safely there was pretty big, because I could even consider not ramping anymore and just focusing on damage every turn. Because even if I don't ramp up farther, I should have enough damage with what I have left over to get through some mercs. It depends what they have. I'm not sure what comps people are really running. Tyrion, okay. Oh, I don't have the taunt up, actually. Oh, they left. Okay. They probably realized that they can't kill Tamsen that easily, and from this point, they might not know the rest of my comp, but I think I'm still pretty favored from here. Once Vol'jin comes down, the spells are going to come down pretty quickly, and I have enough damage ramp that AoE is probably going to clean up the board. And there you go. There's Shadow. It's pretty fun. It takes a while of getting used to, but I think any comp kind of takes some time right now to figure out how to get going, because it's just, there's so many mercenaries that you're going to be facing when you're doing PvP, and it's going to be hard to learn them all and learn like how the dynamics between the heroes works. So good luck, happy grinding. Hope you enjoyed the video. If there's specific comps you want to see, or if you have some suggestions of your own, you know, drop a comment below in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and keep watching. We'll be shipping some comp videos, I think, every day. I'm going to try to get a different comp going every day. It's going to be hard because I need to level everything into 30, but we'll see if we can get that going. All right, see you guys next time.